Everybody, this is Perch. Well, Diamond is screwed. No, no. I mean, sorry. There's a lot of news that's happened in a relatively short amount of time. Okay, so we've got Neil Gaiman and all the shit that's going on there. By the way, please, for the love of God, I've seen some of you in the comments. Please do not go down the path of like Neil Gaiman did nothing wrong. The women are all whores. Please, please. I mean, look, you can do whatever you want, but I don't have the energy for it. Just I'm sorry. Look, what should happen is a fair due process to get the allegations out, to vet them appropriately, to see what's really there and everything else. But we don't need to be saying he should be hung or we should all ignore it. Like, can we just find a nice middle ground to those two points of view? No, the other news is Diamond. So Diamond, surprising absolutely nobody except those who choose to, I guess, ignore it. Diamond has filed for bankruptcy. So for what it's worth, I'm going to toss out very early in the video the news I had, which is Diamond was going to file for bankruptcy, or was basically in that point in Q3 of last year. Q3 is July, August, September of 2024. The hope for Diamond was to get through the holiday season, which typically does, bigger business. So they got, basically some short-term reprieves, some angel investment, other things that allowed them to kind of eke into this year. What's important to recognize in any kind of story like this is what is unique to this situation and what is normal. So I want to talk about the what's normal about bankruptcy and Diamond first. And what's normal is that in January, in the first 2 months of the year, about 80% January, 20% February, that's when companies declare bankruptcy, because by and large, if you're retail, a lot of them or distribution or places that depend on retail, you get a lot of your money toward the end of the year. So what you're hoping is that there is a, surprisingly good end of the year. You close well, and it gives you a path forward into the next year. And if you don't have that, then, that's when bankruptcy tends to happen in January, February. If you've ever gone and raised money for companies, by the way, January and February are an absolute shit time to raise money, because people are half asleep or hungover from New Year's or any number of things. But anyway, that's normal. So Diamond announcing at this moment is about as normal and common a story as it gets. Because, look, I'm just telling you, you could believe me or not, but that's how the world works. It works. Like I said, it works in this fashion. So Diamond has filed for bankruptcy. What does this mean? Well, bankruptcy is poorly understood by a lot of people, and there's people who are, look, this happened today. I'm recording this video at whatever it is. I had a busy day of getting stuff done, both for myself and some of the people I'm helping, and it's 6 o'clock now. And already there are a lot of videos and speculation, which proves the people who are doing it know absolutely nothing about what bankruptcy is as a method. And there's probably a good elevator pitch as to what you should talk about with bankruptcy and what bankruptcy actually means and doesn't mean. But in a nutshell, it basically means that finances are going to be restructured. There's going to be third-party help that's going to come in and help the company, chart a path, if possible, to financial, solidity. I said before, Diamond as a distributor. First of all, again, backing away and talking about things that are common everywhere. The distribution business is a tough business, whether you're distributing paper or software or, Funko Pops or comics. The distribution business is a typically low margin or margin thin, as they call it, business. It's a tough place to be. You have to operate with excellence. It's why, things like MTO, things like operations are very, very important in the distribution business. You want to be very efficient. You want to have, good processes. It's where, in several companies, in several industries, it's where they call you look for every nickel. and you work every nickel out of the system so you run the leanest, most efficient process possible. Well, Diamond, as it relates to comics, and if you were in, a group of retailers in the late 90s, I remember having a lot of conversations that said when Heroes World and some of the, Capital City and some of the other comic distributors basically went away and Diamond took a monopoly over this business, that it was, is a lot of loose ends, a lot of very hard things that were going to come out of that. And it was going to be very tough for Diamond to maintain this. Now, to their credit, Jeppy and that entire group did maintain it for quite a while, longer than arguably they should have, with very little modernization. I mean, Jeppy's son had some ideas, they never really came to fruition. There was always kind of this good old boys network in terms of how comics distribution was run. And so in many ways, comics as an industry took a let's freeze it in amber approach and not really change anything. And that's what's happened for the last almost 30 years since Diamond sat on this monopoly. Unfortunately, the world has changed. There's been a lot of, if you think about your life, I mean, several of you listening to this right now likely weren't born 30 years ago. But, if you were, think about how much things have changed in terms of how people consume product, how, operations the supply chain works. If you happen to be close to that, there's a lot of differences. And Diamond, by and large, like comics in general, has lived with a if it ain't broke, don't fix it, except it is broke, so let's pretend it's not broke so we don't have to fix it kind of mentality. And that's why we are the way we are. Nowhere is this kind of more true or unfortunately more where does this hit home more than some of the reactions that we've seen to this bankruptcy announcement. And again, a lot of it really kind of hits home that people have no idea what bankruptcy really means. So Brian Hibbs weighs in the way that he does with this, and I'll read it to you. It says, Brian Hibbs of San Francisco Story Comic Experience reminded us there are a lot of people who are actively rooting for Diamond Comics to fail. Well, your wishes appear to be coming true as Diamond files for Chapter 11, and this is going to be a truly dire news for the direct market, at least in the short and medium term. So just before we get to the rest of what Steve Jeppy said, and why any of us are paying attention to this jackass, I have no idea. But anyway, if you look at, and that's not fair. I mean, I should give you lots of reasons why he's a jackass. Trust me, there are many of them. But look, first of all, the direct market as it has existed has needed to evolve. It hasn't. So if you're telling me that the direct market as we know it is going to change, good. It needs to. As a retailer, it desperately needs to. Brian Hibbs, who has, enjoyed kind of a lot of kickbacks, a lot of excuses on payments, a lot of, cushy deals with Diamond. Of course he's upset this is going away. He has actively participated in places that benefited him over other retailers, and he's angry that the system that gave him those benefits is struggling. Well, the system needs to evolve. Not all of us are Brian Hibbs's age and are going to, be, dying in a few years. You know what? I'm going to use a comics example. Apparently, we're all dying in our mid 40s. If you're older in this business, God bless you. Been in it for a while. As a comic retailer to another comic retailer, good for you for, doing everything you've done in this business. However, there's a lot of young people. There's a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who would also like to become retailers. And they don't all want to be beholden to the elders who did it their way and never want to change. So good. The direct market should change. I don't think a lot of people are rooting for Diamond to fail. They're rooting for Diamond to change, to evolve, to improve, to not send your comics all fucked up, to not have to have Steve on speed dial where you could basically get a loan forgiven or get favorable payment terms that the majority of retailers do not have the option of. And quite bluntly, Brian, Many of us, a lot of us, the majority of us, do not have the kind of deals you had. So good for you for kissing up and getting those deals. But if we're talking about a system that was unfair, guess what? You benefited. We didn't. So, yeah, I'm not rooting for it to fail. I never rooted for Diamond to fail. I did root for Diamond to improve and not be stuck, beholden to a bunch of old farts who are only doing it so they can get their kickbacks. Anyway, we go on. It says, say goodbye to smaller publishers and so long for the right opportunities for a majority of smaller and unproven creators. Okay, for what it's worth, Penguin Random House and some of the other industries have taken a chance on smaller creators, smaller companies, smaller people. Penguin Random House just did a deal with a 2-person company. They did it in a 6-week time span, much faster than it takes to get a relationship with Diamond. I have several friends, several people who have tried to get publishing deals with Diamond who waited a year and a half, never heard an answer. So this myth of like, oh, the big corporation won't care about small people, they absolutely will. What they will not do is give small people sweetheart deals because they're willing to buy them a steak when they come visit them in San Francisco. Okay? Point blank. Cool. You go down to Union Square and you go to the nice restaurant. I know exactly where you've been. All right. It says, never, ever forget that the blame for this falls directly upon DC Comics. And we should never forget this or ever withhold that blame. My best wishes for Steve Geppi, as well as all the staff at Diamond. And in that, I'm going to agree with you. There's a lot of friends I have at Diamond, and I do wish them well. And I hope they, first of all, Chapter 11 is not an ending. It's a restructuring. And quite frankly, a different way to look at the Chapter 11 in a very blunt, crass, and crude way is it's a method for outside parties to fix your company when you prove incapable of doing it yourself financially. It's a place to finally get out of the world where you're doing a million backseat deals with creditors to keep them off your back, where you try and struggle to find another week of life. A lot of people, if you enter into Chapter 11 and you do it appropriately and you do it, you try and find a good business, you have something good at the heart of your company, Chapter 11 can be a blessing because it can get people, it basically sort out your books so you can survive. There are many companies, strong companies, that have come out of Chapter 11 and done it well. But if you've done the shell game of forever trying to just bypass your bad news for another week, then it is an ending. So we'll see which path Diamond takes. In refute of the earlier statement, I hope Diamond does enter it well. And P.S., DC going, hey, we'd like to sell comics, and this thing seems like it's really in bad shape, and I'm going to stop taking a good old boys, we'll forgive a bunch of payments and go ahead and let you slide and give you a loan and not worry about things. I mean, look, Diamond owed money to stores and to publishers, a decent amount of it. And living in a world where everybody should just forget about the money they're owed because it benefits one store owner in San Francisco or a handful of people, because I'm guaranteed there's going to be some statement from the gents over at Mile High about how fucked up this is from their perspective too. But there's a lot of people who are owed money. So should those people just you're owned by Warner Media, so fuck it. You can afford to just, loan people money for a period of time. No, it's bullshit. That's not how business works. You make a deal, you live by that deal. It's one thing to have a handshake behind the scenes every now and then, but when your entire business is run on that, it's time to change. Chapter 11 does that. So blaming DC for that is fucked. And you should be ashamed of yourself for saying that. But yeah, there's a lot of good people at Diamond, and I hope that they enter into this process with good faith and it works out well for them, because I'd like to see comics improve. My goal is for comics to continue to be strong, to be sold, to have new readers, to have new people, in wonder of the great stories they have to tell. Creators who are able to tell a million different stories and different ideas because there's such a marketplace for them. You have to wake up one day and realize that the system you're in is fucked, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to get better. And if you continue to just say, well, it's good for me because I've acclimated to my store and my specialty system because I've been in the industry for that long, you're a selfish, jealous, old, miserable fuck of a man. It says, my most fervent prayers for creators, my fellow retailers, that we're going to be able to navigate this disruption to the market. People, Penguin Random House does not want any account smaller than they already have, which is horseshit. And you can look with roughly 20 seconds searching on Google. You can see that is patently not true. You know, and Lunar, I'm continuing his statement, besides being a primary retail competition for all of us, is really, really bad at their jobs and, in my personal estimation, could not possibly handle adding more vendors. 2025 is going to be a nightmare. Maybe for you. Because you've existed in a world where you did not play by the same rules as everyone else to your benefit. And now, with any luck, and I will be the first one to lend time, support, and money and funding for a profitable, good business. Some of you may not realize this because I've spoken at some of you. There's a process where I was loaning Diamond money, and I was willing to loan a lot more, but it came with a string, and the string was they have to modernize their business. And if you're not going to modernize your business, I am throwing good money after bad. And I think a lot of different people had the same story. So if this is a wake-up call, and Chapter 11 often is, I hope that the wake-up call is that we're going to truly do what's necessary to fix this business, to modernize for the future, and to give us a good comics distributor because we need it. But what we do not need is more of the same, more of the head in the sand, more pretending this stuff doesn't exist. This is an opportunity. This is a crossroads. Despite what you're hearing on YouTube right now, this is not an ending. It is a choice. And the choice is we can have a sustainable, good business, or we could choose to say it doesn't work unless it's the way I've always liked it, in which case this is going to become extinct. So what will it be? What is it going to be?